I want to thank you all for participating in our OR Today webinar series. We are thrilled with the tremendous turnout for today's presentation, with over 140 attendees registered. OR Today is proud to offer these free webinars as a way to educate and provide valuable information to the industry. We will offer one webinar per month on Thursdays, focusing on issues pertinent to the OR Today community. We will always schedule the most sought-after and dynamic speakers in the profession. We want to mention that many of these same speakers and presentations are held at our Surgical Services Summit, which will be held December 7th through 9th in Las Vegas, just a couple weeks away. Please visit surgicalservicessummit.com for more information. A few notes before we begin. Your participation today makes you eligible for a certificate of attendance. A survey about today's presentation will appear on your computer screen immediately following today's webinar. Once the survey is complete, we will email you a certificate by December 2nd. If you do not receive the survey, please email us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. Earlier today, registrants were emailed a webinar workbook. If you did not receive a copy, you can download one by visiting ortoday.com/webinars and clicking on today's presentation. During today's webinar, all lines will be muted, but you can submit questions during the presentation by using the questions feature on the dashboard on the right-hand side of the screen. Again, if you have any difficulty, please feel free to email us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. All right, OR Today would like to thank our sponsor today, UMF Corporation. UMF is a leader in the research and development of high-performance textiles for the commercial cleaning and infection prevention markets. Innovators and specialists in environmental hygiene, UMF Corporation delivers advanced patented antimicrobial technology with industry-leading perfect clean products, education, training, motivation, and support. The company, headquartered in the Chicago suburb of Skokie, Illinois, is the only U.S. company that designs, engineers, and manufactures high-performance fibers and accessories to help its customers meet tough new challenges in public health and safety. Visit www.perfectclean.com to learn more. We are very honored to have our presenter today, Mr. Darrel Hicks, the author of Infection Prevention for Dummies. Darrel is a registered executive housekeeper and has 3 years of managing the housekeeping services in hospitals ranging from 120 to 650 beds. Darrel, take it away.
Thank you, John. It's good to be here today, and I feel honored to address this group and work in a 500-bed hospital here in the Midwest. And so as the EBS director, I know something about the topic today, but also being the author of Infection Prevention for Dummies, I wrote that book with the focus being the role that proper cleaning and disinfection plays in saving lives through preventing or controlling infections. So, we're looking at today that, checklists have been around for a while, and so we're going to talk about the role that cleaning plays in preventing surgical site infections or surgical wound infections, kind of in interchangeable terms, but anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So the checklist that covers a 24/7 clean and ready condition in the surgical suite, because we have to have the operating room ready 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we'll get started. And first of all, there's this problem with SSIs. They're the most common and costly HAI in the U.S., and these surgical wound infections occur in as many as 5% of patients undergoing surgery, inpatient surgery, that is. And that amounts to 160 to 300,000 cases each year at a cost of $10 billion. So it is a big problem, and personnel and their compliance with aseptic procedures are a critical component to preventing these infections. And here's a news item that I pulled from the internet, and it deals with a hospital out in Orange County, California. And they had to close 14 of their operating rooms in Mission Viejo and Laguna Beach. But the problem there was found out to be that higher temperatures, too high temperatures, and too high humidity in some of the rooms and it caused surgical site infections in some of their patients, and the hospital was forced to close their operating rooms. So, you know, you can imagine the impact on revenue when you close your operating rooms down to find the source of the problem. And so it's lost revenue, but also the Joint Commission was taking the problem very seriously, and of course CMS was involved. So I wouldn't wish that on anyone. So that's why it's important that that we control these surgical site infections. And the question is, where did things go wrong? And there's, you know, there could be a variety of things that cause surgical site infections, and I'm not going to talk about those other things, but I'd like to focus instead today on the role that the contaminated environment plays in contributing to these infections. So the problem is that when clean, gloved hands touch surfaces that are contaminated with pathogens, pathogens being those things that cause infections and disease, some of those pathogens can live on surfaces, dry surfaces, for longer than 58 days. And so if you touch those contaminated surfaces and then you're into a body cavity, the outcome for the patient and the institution could be disastrous. So there was a survey done by Infection Control Today, and they looked at this question of what do you consider to be the most important issues facing perioperative nurses. And surgical site infection prevention was top on the list. And you see the budget cuts and compliance with evidence-based practices, inadequate staffing scored pretty high, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But some of the other responses include too much emphasis on turnaround times, and we're always battling that topic, and the OR is improving on those turnaround times so that it's the case in and the case out. But one of the things that was mentioned in the responses was cleaning between cases and terminal cleaning as being very important. So when we look at the housekeeping requirements, all cases are considered potentially infectious. And the cleanup between quote-unquote clean or dirty cases is the same. You don't treat one case because you know it's a MRSA patient. You shouldn't treat that case any differently than you do, you know, a clean case. They should all be handled because they're all potentially infectious. The patient must be provided a safe and clean environment, and that is what we're going to talk about today. These pathogenic organisms are present on environmental surfaces, and it's normally the ones that we want to focus on are those high-touch surfaces that could transmit, you know, some of these pathogens from a hard, impervious surface to clean, gloved hands. That some of those pathogens, as I said earlier, can survive on surfaces for more than 58 days. Pathogens on these environmental surfaces are often transferred to other surfaces and possibly into the sterile field. And environmental cleaning is the framework. You know, we're talking about housekeeping requirements here, so environmental cleaning is the framework and basis for all aseptic practices. Sanitation protocols for cleaning and disinfection are required before, during, and after each procedure. We're going to address the before and after each surgical procedure here today. So we've got a survey question for you. Who is responsible for the overall cleanliness of your surgical department? And you see the choices there, and you're going to be able to enter your opinion about who is responsible for the overall cleanliness of your surgical department.
Hey, Darrell, this is Jamie. Give me 1 second. We're going to launch that poll so our attendees today will be able to vote. Attendees, you should now see your options. If you'll go ahead, click the one that is the best answer. We have votes coming in. We're now at 32%, 41, 46. We'll give it a few more seconds till we get close to 100%, and I will reveal the answers to everyone.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, a few more seconds. Looks like everyone has voted. Go ahead and close it out, and we're going to share the results. Darrel, you'll see we have a clear leader there with its shared role between EVs and OR employees.
Okay, that's important to know. So, you know, the point that we're going to make a little bit later is that both those EVS and OR staff need to be trained to a standard. So checklists ensure a safer operating room environment. You have them, you know, the stop signs, and you have other things that the timeouts provide. Checklists for a long time have provided for safer operating room procedures. But from an environmental cleaning perspective, processing the OR is a complex set of steps. Now, when I say processing, you'll hear me say that, and I think a lot of people would use the term cleaning, but I want to talk about or use the term process or processing because that includes cleaning and disinfecting an area, an item or an area using a clean micro-denier cloth or flat mop as appropriate and approved EPA registered disinfectants. So, you know, when you see process, a lot of people try to use the word clean there, but I'm going to use processing because I think it takes it to another level, much higher level than some of the quote-unquote cleaning that I've seen done. So often more than one person is performing these cleaning tasks in the room, and it could be environmental services, and it sounds like, you know, that we have, you know, OR and EVS sharing that, and so it could be orderlies, anesthesia techs, patient care techs, whatever their title is. People are performing these cleaning processing operations. So the checklist just communicates each step of the process with a check mark. The checklist builds accountability by asking for the initials of the person who performed the task. And the room isn't ready for the next case until the checklist is completed and that the processing has been done to the satisfaction of the circulating nurse or whoever is checking those rooms to make sure that they're clean and ready. So just some definitions here. Clean means the absence of visible dust, soil, debris, blood, or other potentially infectious material. Disinfection is a process, you know, we don't sterilize rooms because we can't fit them in autoclaves. So our goal is to disinfect, and that's a process that kills most forms of microorganisms on inanimate surfaces to a 99.9999 level. So the difference between 99.9, people say 99.9 sounds like it's pretty good. But if you look at the fact that at any given time there's probably 5 million people flying around the world and in the air at any hour of the day, and of those 5 million, if we were satisfied with 99.9% effectiveness, there would be 500,000 people a day die from airplane crashes. But if we get down to the 99.9999, only 50 people, and it's not unimaginable that 50 people die every day from airplane crashes. So the point is that we're not satisfied with 99.9 or 99.99 until we get to the 4 nines after the decimal point, then we have arrived at disinfection. terminal processing, at the end of each day, the surgical suite should be returned to its clean, safe, and disinfected environment. The correctly performed process ensures the clean, gloved hands don't become contaminated when touching those environmental surfaces. And then there's a between case or post-procedure processing, and that's just getting that procedural room or surgical room, operating room ready for the next case. So it's between case cleaning. So types of processing, the very first one is the OR. If you go to the AORN cleaning and disinfection standards for the operating rooms, you see these 4 different levels. The first one being pre-first procedure processing, and there's actually 7 steps that need to be performed for that first thing in the morning or before that first case gets started in that room. Or before these sterile supplies are brought into the room and opened up, these 7 steps need to be performed. And that's what the checklist is for, is that OR pre-first procedure process. And then there's the OR 24-hour idle processing. And this is if something was terminally cleaned on Friday evening and it's now Saturday, Sunday, then these 9 steps, which won't take very long in a room, but it's just to keep that room clean and ready for that first case, and just in the event that it would be an emergent situation where you don't have time to do this pre-first procedure process. If you do the OR 24-hour idle processing of those empty rooms, then you're always ready for that emergent situation. But if you've got the time, then you do the pre-first procedure process. Then there's the between case processing, and there's actually 10 steps performed between each surgical case or procedure throughout the day. And what this does, if you perform this processing correctly, then you're halting the possible transmission of bloodborne pathogens from one patient to another. Then the terminal processing is a 10-step process. When done properly in order, it returns the operating room to a safe, clean, and disinfected space for the day. Now, people say, well, if it's terminally cleaned and then we have to go in there and do a case, depending on the case, that room doesn't have to be terminally processed again. Here at our hospital, terminally cleaned rooms are once a day, once a 24-hour period, and then a between case processing, which is fairly thorough, but would be done in that room that was terminally cleaned within the 24 hours. So there's a checklist with 10 steps for each of these 2, between case and terminal processing both. So time for another survey question. And Jamie's going to cue that up, and you'll be able to give us what you're using for cleaning and processing in your OR.
Darrell, the options are on the screen right now, and attendees are currently voting. While we give it a few more seconds to get our results, I do want to remind everyone you are welcome to submit questions at any time during the presentation today by using the question feature on your dashboard. All questions will be addressed at the end of the call. Any questions we can't get to due to time constraints, Darrell has agreed to answer them, and we'll send them out in an email to all of the attendees today. It looks like we're about 55% of the audience has voted. We'll give it just a few more seconds before I publish our results. And pretty close contest this time. We'll go ahead and share the results. You'll see the #1 answer would be the microfiber wipes and mops that are laundered each day.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because that is the best practice, and but I do see combinations of all those. And back in the day, we used these blue OR towels that came in, you know, the case packages, and you know, it was a shame to throw away those nice blue Huck towels, and so that's what we used until we were educated that microfiber is the best product to be using. So glad to see that the majority of people are following that practice. So let's just talk a minute about soil removal, because this is what I believe is the essential step in whether we're cleaning the OR or patient rooms or a hotel room, whatever it is. It's all about soil removal. So washing or scrubbing a surface physically removes soil and organic material such as blood and potentially infectious material. As that soil, or what I call the bioload, is removed from a surface, most, if not all, the pathogens that live and reproduce in the soil are removed with it. So for years, I think in this country, we have depended on disinfectants to kill the little boogers when we ought to be removing them. And if we got back to physically removing the soil from a surface, then with that soil goes all the bad guys. And what is left on the surface, then the disinfectant has a much better chance of doing its job. So that's why I'm saying there is the guiding principle ought to be removing those germs rather than trying to kill them, and then use the least toxic product that will do the job of killing what is remaining on that surface. But the principle is that if you remove the food source for bacteria and the viruses that populate a surface, if you remove the food source, then they don't survive very long. So if we can do a 99.9% soil removal through a good ultra or a good microdenier cloth, then you remove that food source and they will starve to death if they don't get killed by the disinfectant. Detergent or disinfectant, you know, which is the best to use? I think that it should be a two-step process. Use a detergent before using a disinfectant to make sure that all the soil and the dirt are removed if the equipment is visibly dirty. And whenever you look at disinfectants, they are either a one-step combined detergent and disinfectant, or a two-step, meaning that you can only use the disinfectant on a pre-cleaned surface. So you need to know which disinfectant you're using. But I can tell you that if there is visible blood and body fluids and pieces of flesh or whatever present, then you need to remove that soil, and just a good cleaner, good cleaning agent, neutral cleaner or heavy-duty cleaner would do a good job of removing the soil, and then I would use your either your one-step or your two-step products. Here is the difference between, this is just an enlargement of something that I believe you need to know, but number one there is a cotton fiber, and you can see this is electron microscope that we're looking at here. And so in relative size, you see those things there, number two being pollen, ragweed pollen. Number three is the perfect clean microfiber, and you see the three sides to each one of those split microfibers. The microdenier is actually a split, and that's what you're seeing there. And then you see red blood cells, their relative size, and you see that even a red blood cell, that the microdenier cloth fiber is smaller than the red blood cells. So, you see things in relative size there, and so why would you use a cotton product to try to remove those tiny particles that you see represented in this slide? Here is another way of looking at it. So there's a scientific method to removing, in this case MRSA. You see the size of the cotton fiber there, and then the size of MRSA bacteria on a microfiber. A microdenier product such as the Perfect Clean. Here is another picture of the cotton. You see the challenge of capturing something as small as the MRSA bacteria on something as large as cotton fiber. And here is the microdenier product that I'm talking about, and that means that each one of those microfibers is split into all those ultra or the microdenier that you're seeing there. So each one of those surfaces has a chance to collect and hold things such as the MRSA and other pathogens, and the microdenier product will capture and hold it until it is released in the wash and the washing machine, I should say. So one of the, if you have that microdenier product, then you're damp dusting and using that in the proper manner, and you have the Perfect Clean cloth moistened with disinfectant. You're damp dusting, because dust, if that room was terminally cleaned at 6 o'clock yesterday evening and you're starting your first case at 8 o'clock the next morning, that's 10 hours that has been able to collect dust. So you need to do this damp dusting, because dust is how things travel. Bacteria don't have wings or legs. They travel on dust. So damp dust things from the top to the bottom, so starting at the OR light and then moving down to the bottom. But it removes dust from these horizontal surfaces, and with the dust goes the bad guys, the germs and all those other things. So what should be processed first? Process from the top down. Because of gravity, if you dust something and it falls down, then you can collect it as you get to it. But always process things from the top to the bottom. And then from the low soil areas to the highly soiled areas. So thinking about in a room, the low soil areas are things like door handles, light switch plates, and things like that may have been touched, but they're not the highly soiled areas. The highly soiled areas are the table and that immediate probably 3 feet around the table. Those are the last things that you want to clean. And then do so in a clockwise or counterclockwise processing manner, so that if you do it the same way each time, then you're more productive that way, and you're also more sure to not miss something. So do it in one or the other, or you can switch off and do one clockwise and the other one counterclockwise. I don't care, but as long as you have a process to ensure that everything gets cleaned as it should be. Here's a representation. Start cleaning from the periphery and work your way towards the OR bed. This is just what I was talking about. The number one things are those that could be high touch areas, but most likely they're less soiled than those things that are number threes. And number two is in between. That handle on the OR light is pretty high touch, pretty soiled, but not as much as the table and that area right around it. So here is between case processing in the OR, and there you see the darker lavender. You need to do those items with every patient, every process, every patient. Those things need to be processed. And the lighter colored lavender is every patient if it's used. Not everything gets used by every patient. So if it's used in that case, then it needs to be processed. And those other, the goldenrod color, they're enhanced, and that would mean that there's a pretty good likelihood that they are soiled and need to be wiped off in between case. And then the lighter blue, meaning the floor and the walls, if they're soiled. If they're not, then they're not a source of cross-transmission. So what must be processed? In the OR or procedural room, the anesthesia machine and carts, equipment, booms, IV poles and pumps, and patient monitors. Things such as the telephones, those OR lights, keyboards. We find these in nearly all procedure or operating rooms. The anesthesia cart is something that here at our hospital we do not clean that. The anesthesia techs do the cart, the machine, and suction devices. And so if those things are done by someone else other than EVS, then you need to make sure that those folks are trained and competent in what they are doing. IV poles, these are things that EVS would be processing, these high-touch things. So you move the equipment around the room and clean the floor underneath. If it's soiled, we're still talking about what needs to be processed, chairs and stools, step stools, door handles, you see all those things. But wheels on everything need to be processed because things get splattered on them, and the best way to do that if you're doing a terminal cleaning is to flood the floor with the disinfectant and then roll the wheels through it so that they're getting disinfected as well. The linen receptacles, you empty the regular and the biohazardous trash and the soiled linen. So all those things must be processed. The overhead light, procedure lights, you can see all those things there. So there are a lot of things. I don't need to tell you that there are a lot of things in most operating rooms, depending on the type procedure that's done in there. If it's a urological room, then there's not as much stuff, but that room gets processed probably more thoroughly than some others, like a room where an eye case, cataract removal, or something, eye or ear related. There's not a lot of blood or body fluids, but the uro rooms are. So anyway, all those things need to be processed. The OR beds and with all their attachment, the positioning devices, whether those are triangular shaped, foam covered things that position arms and legs and all that. They all need to be processed. Here is the OR table, and you see people working, processing that OR table, the position, the arm board, and all the way down to the floor. And then if that table is like most of them, it can be moved, and it should be moved. If not between, it should be looked at under the table. If there's blood on the floor around that table, then as you clean up the floor, then make sure that that bed gets moved and cleaned underneath. remove all soil and debris. Sometimes there's debris, there's suture strings, and could be other things on the floor, but remove all that soil and debris from those floor surfaces, starting at the edge of the room and then moving toward the center of the room. The center of the room is where most patient care happens, and that's where it's more likely to be heavier soiled, so you need to again, you're starting from the lightest load of soil to the heaviest area. You see that happening here, and then the end product is a nice, clean, and ready room that the next case can be done in. And then there's other areas other than the OR itself. Not all areas in the OR and procedural areas are cleaned daily. Certainly the corridors and what have you, the scrub sinks are going to be done daily, but then other things such as walls and, like the substerile areas, they're put on a weekly, monthly, quarterly schedule. That's something that you all agree on, both the EVS and the OR staff, along with input from infection prevention and control, so that everyone's in agreement at the frequency that those things need to be processed at. But walls, should be checked and cleaned with any visible soiling, but it's not something that needs to be washed every day in the ORs. So the one thing I want to drive home here is that whatever you agree on, that you set up a schedule, and that EVS folks know what that schedule is, and that they're completing that schedule and recording the date and who did it. And because we just had a joint commission survey here, and that was one of the things that we had to produce was those records of, that to prove that what we said we were going to do, that it had been done at the frequency that we said it should be done. Some of the schedule processing you see in the sterile processing area where sterile supplies are kept. Elevator, if you have an elevator like we do here, that the storeroom for all the stuff that you see here on the right is all kept a floor below where the OR is. So we have to clean that elevator just as if it was one of the OR corridors, or where we keep these sterile supplies. Shelves, storage bins, all those things need to be processed on a schedule. Privacy curtains is a big one. You may have them in the holding area. You may have them in recovery areas. If you're like most places, then you have to have a frequency of washing those curtains, and I would suggest every 30 days, once a quarter at minimum, and then when they're visibly soiled. But you need to have a schedule of those, because that privacy curtain, you'll find people wearing gloves, pulling back the privacy curtain, and the next person comes along, doesn't have gloves on. And those privacy curtains are pulled back and forth frequently throughout the day, and you have soiled hands touching them, you have clean hands touching them. So take a good look at your privacy curtain cleaning process, and then make sure that it's being done on the frequency that you all agreed to. So you need the coordinated processing, cleaning of the following equipment will need to be done, along with the facility maintenance people. And this is something you need to work with your maintenance people on. Eye wash stations, if you have those present in the suite. Ice machines, we have a frequency policy and procedure here that maintenance performs on the ice machines. We clean the exteriors, but there's some infection prevention sorts of things that need to be done to those ice machines. Refrigerators, if it's a staff refrigerator, the staff probably cleans it. If it's something that holds patient nourishments or patient meds, those kinds of things, the EVS folks here clean those refrigerators. But you need to know whose responsibility is and what frequency, and then if it has anything to do with patient care, there needs to be a log kept, not just of temperatures, but a cleaning regimen. And then you have your autoclaves, your sterilizers, your maintenance may need to be brought into that, especially these HVAC ducts that EVS here cleans the outside, the grill of those air returns or fresh air or the return vents, but occasionally those things need to be taken off, and maintenance works with us. They take them off, and then we clean, vacuum the insides as far as we can reach to try to keep down the free-floating dust that accumulates in the HVAC system. So the routine maintenance of all these items is necessary, and that's when you need to agree with the maintenance department on the frequency and that someone is recording that those things are getting done. And then the equipment must be cleaned before bringing patients in for care. Competency assessment, each person, and I mentioned that the anesthesia techs clean things, and from what I heard earlier, the majority of those who answered the poll question agreed that EVS and OR staff share the cleaning responsibilities. And my question is, who trains everyone, and are they trained to the same standard? And then you need to have this competency assessment available for the regulators when they do come. But even if an outside company does the cleaning, some of the freestanding surgery centers, it could be a contract cleaning company that does that, but that doesn't relieve you as the owner of that building from the responsibility of ensuring that they're trained, that everyone who comes into your OR, your procedure room, is trained to a certain standard. And that a record of that training and competency assessment should be available to you. It must be available to you. That is one of the things that our Joint Commission wanted to see, was some of our off-site locations that are cleaned by outside contracting companies, and they're wanting to see that those people that are cleaning those procedure rooms, processing them, are trained to a standard, and that someone is assessing their competency. So I want to talk now about it's time for the hygiene specialist. I think that time has come to turn cleaning professionals into hygiene specialists, and this is something that is offered by Perfect Clean. George Clark, our founder, came up with the term hygiene specialist, and it is trademarked. But the point is that infection prevention will only become a reality when the hygiene specialist is properly regarded, educated, and equipped. So the hygiene specialist must be well trained in their job role, equipped with the necessary tools to clean, sanitize, or disinfect. They must be given the proper amount of time to do those tasks. They should be given the tools to enable scientific measurement. And what I'm talking about here is ATP meters that measure the cleanliness of a surface, and that is measuring whether or not the processes, the chemical, and the employee are doing things, performing as they should. But that hygiene specialist needs to be educated about the prevention and the transmission of disease. So whenever I present this concept to people, everyone nods their head yes, that we need to do a better job of preventing infections. The world that is coming right now is multi-drug resistant organisms such as MRSA. CRE is the really big one, and when we have organisms that mutate and change constantly, you know, antibiotics aren't going to knock them out, and it could be that cleaning and sanitizing and disinfection is the only way that we're going to have to control or to prevent some of these organisms. So wouldn't it be nice if everyone was trained to a standard? And I'm not talking about just in hospitals and ORs, but my daughter-in-law, just a personal story, she was 37 at the time, was training for Iron Woman competition down in Atlanta, spending a lot of time in the gym with a personal trainer and working out, and she developed an infection between her thumb and her first finger, and it didn't improve, and within 8 weeks she was dead. And it turned out that it was MRSA, became a bloodstream infection and settled around the lining of her heart. She was never in a hospital. She was in a workout center. So I don't care where you're cleaning and sanitizing, disinfecting, but everyone needs to be trained to these standards and given the tools. And by the way, we're going to have to compensate them better than we have, because that would slow down the turnover and we would get better quality of people applying for those jobs. And their role is so important. It's not just cleaning. I think people feel like, you know, as long as you got people willing to work for $10 an hour and clean, that's all we need. But if we get the people to the hygiene specialist level, then we're going to have to compensate them better so that we're assured of clean, sanitized, and safe areas. So this is from Perfect Clean. You see here on the left is those checklists I was talking about earlier, and you see there the seal of recognition that AORN has given to these checklists. Perfect Clean merely took the AORN cleaning standards and developed these checklists. And you see there that there's a column for the employee cleaning it. So each one of those 10 items on that page, someone needs to put their initials on there, and then you know if something's not clean to the standard, it doesn't pass muster, then you know who to go back to do some education. But they also provide a hygiene specialist handbook for our operating room processing. So we've actually developed this little handbook, and it's talking about the importance of their role and how to do things. Then we give a certificate of achievement, and that's what you see over here on the right. So here you see the competency checklist that we use, and you see one of our reps there, Bill Worthy, putting the hygiene specialist pin on someone who had completed the course and is now a hygiene specialist, and we need more of him out there in the world to ensure that infection prevention goes on. So now, time for the last survey question, Jamie. So if you would put it up, I'd appreciate it.
It is on the screen for attendees right now. And just a reminder, Darrell, it is 5 to 1, so it matches similar to the pain management scale that we saw on the slide earlier. As the attendees are entering their answer, just a last reminder to please submit your questions via the question feature on your dashboard. The Q&A session will be coming up soon. And a couple of more seconds until we close this poll. All right. And Darrell will share the results. Looks like, again, we have a clear leader with better than most out of 4.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and many times when I ask that question, I get this frown, and, you know, a lot of people feel like it has room for improvement, but here is, just a little commercial for Perfect Clean, and there's our micro-denier products, the wipers and the mops, and you can see that we have a color-coded system, and that means that for different rooms we use different colors, and for the OR the color is green, and so we train the hygiene specialist to that standard. You can see that we're the only company that gives a lifetime warranty on the mop handles and frames that you see there, and you see that other people that are using our processes and our products, their range from education to some of the finest hotels in the world, and so we have many of those. And there's my information if you would want to contact me offline, and the cover of my little book. So it does exist, and it's been quite popular. And so anyway, there's the resources, and I'm ready for some questions.
Great, Darrell. Fantastic job. We got a question here, and I want to remind all the attendees, please use the questions feature on the right-hand side of your dashboard to ask some questions to Darrell. First question here is, should cleaning of walls be included as part of the daily terminal cleaning process, or are walls and ceilings a component of cyclic cleaning?
They certainly should be checked, and if visibly soiled, blood or other stuff is splashed up on the walls, then that has to be removed. But usually walls and ceilings do not play a role in cross-transmission. They're not a high-touch surface, so they're not part of the daily or the terminal cleaning process, but rather the cycle cleaning. And here we wash our walls and ceilings monthly. So, and then we're daily checking and cleaning as needed. Between each case, too, not just terminal cleaning, but between case cleaning also.
Okay, fantastic. We did have a request to post your contact info again as I read off the next question. Darrell, what's the difference between sanitizing and disinfecting?
Sanitizing is something that would be appropriate for if you were cleaning in a food preparation area where you cannot or you should not disinfect things unless you use a potable, water rinse. I'm having trouble getting that slide up here. But sanitizing would be more to the level of the 99.9%. Disinfection is a 99.99999. So that's the difference, is how much of the soil is removed from the surface.
Okay, great. Next one. What do you recommend for the use of UV devices in terminal cleaning?
UV devices, it still has to be, the room has to be cleaned, and so you can't, I use the analogy that if I use a plate and eat dinner off of, I can put that plate in the cabinet after I'm done, and it would certainly, the microwave would kill whatever was on there, but that's not the way to do it. So you would have to, clean it first and then disinfect it. So I think that's, I think the UV light may have a place for, it's kind of the analogy that I use is seatbelts and airbags, and the disinfection processing is the seat belt part of it, and the UV or the hydrogen peroxide vapor could be, a airbag. So anyway, that's how I view the difference.
Fantastic. Okay. Should privacy curtains routinely be cleaned quarterly and as needed, or more often?
Well, here in our OR, we actually use a disposable privacy curtain, and that way we can change them more frequently. We use them in our emergency department. Every time we have a MRSA case come in, we have, as most hospitals do, the frequent flyers from the nursing homes, and so we know who those people are, and so we don't have to run any tests. We know that they have MRSA, and so these curtains are so easy to change. It doesn't involve a ladder and a housekeeper up on a ladder. They can be changed in 2 or 3 minutes. And if 50 curtains get changed in our emergency department every month, nursing probably did 30 of them. They're that easy to do, and they kind of like being able to change them without calling the housekeeping to do that. Because the other problem with that is having replacement curtains, having a standard curtain, so that, if you call down the housekeeping and say we need a curtain change, then, there's only one curtain that will fit that situation. So I think that privacy curtains have been shown time after time to be harboring MRSA, C. diff, and so they're definitely potential transmitters of disease. Like I said, too often, gloved hands, soiled hands, pull back the curtain, and the next person come along and have clean, ungloved hands and touch the same curtain. So you need to be cognizant of that fact, and just be aware, and then set up a process. And I would say that monthly would be a good first step, but quarterly would be a bare minimum. But I know people that say, we clean them when they're soiled. Well, that could be a year, and think about how many hands have touched that curtain. So I'd say that quarterly would be the minimum. Monthly would be a better goal.
Okay, it looks like one more question, unless we have some more out there. How do we get copies of the forms you showed for checkoff?
Well, that will be in the survey, and the question there is, would you like to have a UMF Perfect Clean rep contact you? And if you like what you've seen and would like to explore the possibility of using the microdenier products that Perfect Clean offers, then you get the Hygiene Specialist program with that. It's at no charge, and so with that would come a UMF Perfect Clean rep to come in and train all those people that you say need to be trained to a standard. They will do the competency assessment, and you'll get the checklist. Everything is all included in the purchase program for those products that I showed you earlier, the green wipers, the green mops, all the hardware that goes with them that are, warranted for life. The hardware is. These microdenier products, will last a couple of hundred launderings, and they're very durable and very effective at soil removal. And so, there will be a question there if you want someone to contact you, and then they can go over the program with you at that time.
Okay, I think that just about finishes the questions, Darrel. I wanted to thank you for your time and wisdom that you shared today. Also, a big thank you to our sponsor, UMF Corporation. Remember, to learn more about the company, go to perfectclean.com. And another reminder that to the attendees, your participation today makes you eligible for a certificate of attendance. A survey about today's presentation will appear in your computer screen immediately following today's webinar. Once that survey is complete, we will email you your certificate by December 2nd. If you do not receive the survey, please email us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. Thank you again for OR Today, your participation. We appreciate the webinar. Thank you, Darrell, and we will look forward to the next time. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.